I think we're good. Working on a different computer here.
Yeah, we're having some fun. We're out in John's backyard.
Showing the trailer off.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome thing. So this is our first time where we actually have been in the same place at the same time, trying to do our talk. So this is gonna be fun.
It's different. It's I'm used to looking straight ahead and seeing you there. Now I gotta look to my side.
I still see you. I still see you.
This is pretty funny. This is awkward.
So we're a little late tonight. We had an awesome experience today.
Yeah.
So John and I got to do a tour of the Las Vegas Raiders practice facility. It's pretty awesome. One of my former students is one of the athletic trainers there. And so he took me, John, and our staff and all of the senior students that I have on a tour. So that was a pretty awesome experience.
Oh, that was great. And it's, and I said this during our tour there, it's intimidating being in the Raiders facility because it's just wind, baby. And, such a high level of athlete that works there and plays and practices. And, we see them on TV, and it's just this big enterprise that's really neat that is here in town, and that we're able to go in and see the facility.
Yeah, it blew me away. I've been to a lot of facilities like that, but their athletic training facility was second to none. That's for sure. It's pretty interesting because that was desert two years ago, and now this is unbelievable facility.
One of my favorite biking routes out there, going out St. Rose Parkway, and then we were talking about, we used to bike down to Jean and Good Springs, but that's gotten so heavy with traffic that's just not as great of a ride right now.
Yeah, and then John and I might have to break into the Raiders facility because we noticed they have a beautiful lap pool outside, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is like, it would be some good swimming here.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of good facilities,
yes,
we had a great time in Oceanside.
We had a really good time in Oceanside. I mean, honestly, that was a fun weekend.
It was. Yeah.
How many people from Las Vegas?
Oh, there was at least 30. Yeah.
Yep. So the Las Vegas crew was in full force. For the most part, everyone did well. Yep. And the conditions were, I think, the best I can ever remember in Oceanside. What was it, like 62, 63 degrees most of the day, and cloudy. And I even got a little sprinkle on the run. I don't know if you got a little.
I don't know if I did or not, but now that you say that, it was obviously very humid.
Yep.
And but yeah, I don't think I don't think it registered that it was raining, but I think at some point, now that you say that, I think there was some
mist
in the air. Yeah.
I actually contend it was, for me, the coolest 70.3 I've ever done.
Yeah.
Like, from like start to finish. I've had some really cold mornings.
Yeah.
But definitely the coolest finishing temperature I think I've ever done.
Well,
70.3.
But cool there is it's a different cool. Like 60 degrees there is like totally different than 60 degrees here.
Yeah.
Just because the humidity holds on to some of that heat a bit more. But the weather was just, it was PR weather. That was really good.
Well, even the wind on the bike, there was some wind on the bike, but not as windy as normal.
No.
And so there were some unbelievable bike times. The pros were going 207, 208, super fast, and super fast run times all around. So yeah, it was a great day, but it was not a day that there was no mistakes and no issues that happened. So tonight we're going to talk about race issues, I guess we'll call it, and not necessarily race issues that we had during that race, but we'll talk about some of those as well. But like how to overcome race issues. This takes me back to when I started doing long distance triathlon, and I knew John back then. And one of the pieces of advice he gave me is, he said, Ted, that Ironman and half Ironman it's really a problem solving, and it's interesting because that's what I like about my job as an athletic trainer is it's problem solving. And triathlon is problem solving. You're not going to, especially long distance racing, you're not going to have a day where you don't have a problem that needs to be solved.
Something's going to come up.
Yeah.
Something. And it's neat reading race reports from even the pros.
Yeah.
Something's come up. Even Lionel Sanders and Rudy Von Berg, they're coming down, they're finishing for the sprint. There's no official sprint line.
Yep.
And so now what are you sprinting to?
Yeah. Where do you dive?
Where do you lean in?
Yeah.
And so, there's issues with every level of athlete, and it is neat to read the reports and see how people overcame them and really still had a successful day.
Yeah. So John, did you have personally, did you have any things you needed to
None at
overcome?
all. No. I had several.
Yeah. So let's talk about yours.
Well,
Give us your first one, then maybe I'll give you one I have.
Okay, so I'll go time wise. Well, first of all, we got woken up at 3:30 in the morning because someone wanted a wake up call.
Someone in your hotel?
Someone in the hotel, but they put in the wrong room number.
Oh.
And so our room number got the wake up call at 3:30. And it took a while to try to even get the phone to stop buzzing and doing whatever it was doing. And so we were in 503. So if you were in 603 or 530 or
305,
you dialed the wrong number to put in your wake up call, and you dialed our number.
I didn't even know hotels did wake up calls anymore. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, I think you could just put it in your phone and you can automatic set it. And so we got woken up at a little earlier than we were planning on. So, but
so that's a thing.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was your first thing of the day.
And it does happen because even at 70.3 Hawaii, we had a fire alarm the night before. And so these types of things do happen the night before. So you do have to be prepared. But we always talk about that night before the race is not as important for sleep as 2 nights before. And I really focus in on that 2 night before, making sure that's the night to get a good night's sleep.
Absolutely.
What was
my first one?
Yeah.
Honestly, things were going well until we got punched in the mouth on that first little bit of the swim.
By the waves or by the person?
By the waves. The quote that I was going through my mind is, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah, right.
And man, those waves in the beginning, it was rough. So my plan is when I swim is to stick behind my friend Julie.
Mm-hmm.
And because she swims just a little bit faster than me, and I've had some of my best swim splits when I'm on her feet.
Mm-hmm.
So she went in 5 seconds before me, and I ran and caught up to her as we went into the first breakers. Well, shoot.
Never see her at that point.
Well, then on the first wave that really went, I actually dove under and grabbed the sand.
Yeah.
And I came up and I looked, and she's like 10, 15 meters behind me. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to swim out to my best I can to that first buoy. And then the next wave comes over and the next one. I'm like, well, there's no way we're going to see each other. But the interesting thing was we get to the first turn buoy and I look to the right and I'm breathing to the right and she's there.
Yeah.
And I've swam with her so many times. We swim in the same lane when we train. I can recognize her and I'm like, oh, that's Julie there. And fortunately for me, I was actually able to follow her the rest of the way in. So,
that's cool. That's amazing that you ran into each other again, because that surf was pretty tough. And I guess you could even go back the day before in terms of race day issues.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people realize that surf was a little bit more serious than a surf that we see down here at Lake Mead, although we get some pretty bad waves, but there was some pretty good surf there. So
on the Thursday, I got down there early because I wanted to swim on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat and we looked, we contemplated 15 minutes and we never got in the water. Well, it was the surf was bad. There wasn't even any surfers, which down there, that's a pretty good sign that you don't want to get in.
Yeah. And
the fact that it was kind of cold outside, it was overcast, and we knew the water was 59 degrees, and we're just like, you know what, I don't need to do an extra swim. Right. I really don't. But this was for me. I don't know about you, John. That was the biggest surf I've ever raced in. Like actually going out into.
Well, I've raced off in Long Island, and we had several races in the ocean in the Atlantic. And there were some rough swims. I don't know, getting in like that was a tough day for Oceanside. That was, no doubt.
But honestly, I thought it was fun as heck.
Yeah.
Like when I got through the surf and finally got out to that first buoy, I'm like, wow, that was pretty fun. Yeah. Like what an unusual thing. Oftentimes we're in lakes and or rivers and it's pretty calm. And or just a choppy lake. A
Mhm.
choppy lake is not fun. Like to me,
Mhm.
that was way more fun than a choppy lake.
Mhm.
You know, the choppy lake, you always seem like you're fighting the entire
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice that it's a beach, you know,
Yes.
and that you can run in, you
Yeah.
know, even though we love our Lake Mead, Boulder Beach is called Boulder Beach for a reason. It's not easy to, it's just a lot of rocks. So,
Yeah.
but so that's neat to be able to have a run in. But I actually walked in. I took my time. I was not going to be in a rush at all for this race in the start. So it was very relaxing start. Walked in under, you know, through the, you know, waist deep surf, and then the bigger waves came in. I did the same thing. I went under. I did under 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden you're clear of them, and then started swimming.
Yeah. So your second issue.
My second issue. Oh, okay. So time wise, let's see. I got down to T1 getting set up, get transition area, and realized I forgot my nutrition bottles.
Oh, you just didn't have them.
I didn't have them with me at all.
Oh
No,
my God.
they were back in the room.
So your bike is sitting there with no nutrition on it.
No, that's right. I had, and so I had my front, and I had no bottles either. So
Yeah.
I had my front reservoir, and I said, okay, well, I'll just fill this up with water at that point.
So you just went to the water in the transition area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that worked out. But then I figured I would just pick up some nutrition at the aid station, you know, maybe grab a bottle there. But it was so cool. I ended up not needing any fluids on the whole course. So it was pretty, I never even put a water bottle in my water bottle cages. But, you know, I also was the mindset, I'm going to have a nice, I'm going to have nice, even pace for the bike ride. And so, you know, I had a little bit more options in terms of what I could take in at that point.
So that's an interesting point you bring up, because it was so chilly on the bike ride
Yeah.
that I think I made a tactical mistake by bringing too much fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So I only went through a bottle and a half of fluid.
Yeah.
But I carried up that first climb an extra pound and a half or so of water. I probably would have been better off to have one bottle, than pick up another, like maybe at aid station 3, and not have carried my water up those climbs. I don't know how much difference it makes, but it's a mental thing, right? That you're carrying water. Well, I had a horrible T1.
Oh.
So this was my first time ever being rescued out of the water.
Oh, okay.
So I made a tactical error in the last 50 yards. So, you know, when you're finishing around, when I'm finishing like 35 minutes or so, there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that last 50 yards was just, it was a kind of like a battle in there. And I kicked a little too hard, I think. And so I went to stand up, and my quadriceps and hamstrings, both legs cramped. And I couldn't move. I literally was stuck in place. And, you know, they had the people there, they're helping people get out of the water. So they grabbed me, one on the right, one on the left, and they lift me out. And I'm like, I'm good. Just let me stand here for a second. And they sit me down on the buoys beside. Medical comes rushing over. I'm like, just give me a second. Just give me a second. And so it took about maybe 30, 40 seconds. And then I was able to walk. And so I walked up the ramp. And then it was a walk/jog to my bike, unfortunately. And I mean, I cramped pretty dang hard, unfortunately. And so then I get to my bike and I'm getting my stuff ready, and I recognize my socks aren't there.
Oh no!
I'm like,
sock gate for you too.
Socks, and I'm like, I really want to have socks today. I mean, the last 70.3 I did without socks, and I really wanted to have socks. But fortunately, where my bike was, my backpack was up against a fence. And I knew my socks were in the backpack. So I just turned around, grabbed my socks, put them on. But little mistakes like that. So in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I'll tell you, I finished 11th in my age group. 10th place was 10 seconds.
There's that 10 seconds.
There's probably 30 seconds of sock messing around with my socks. And so, my T1 was not good.
Oh, I didn't hear about the sock ache. Okay, so back on the cramping though, you have experienced cramping before. So you don't stick a hot shot in your wetsuit.
Oh, I drank a hot shot at T1 though. So when I got to my bike, I have one there. But this one is this cramp was kind of unusual, and you know, we'll talk more about it. But I was diagnosed with shingles on Tuesday, and it was a rough week for me. I was on antiviral medication. I didn't sleep well Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and because it was, quite a painful ordeal. So I think actually the shingles probably more than anything caused the cramping, because I didn't really have to kick hard except for that last 50 yards because I was drafting off Julie most of the way. But yes, I have struggled, and I'm thinking about, maybe that's what I need to do, is tuck a hot shot in my my wetsuit, or even like in the sleeve of
just
my
an
wetsuit,
emergency
or something like that. And I'm 4 weeks away from the Ironman, and I'm starting to think about these things, like what happens if I'm 40 minutes into the swim and I start to cramp? Because normally my cramps actually happen when I stand up. So there are, I'm trying to problem solve for the next race already.
Well, and I think that, getting diagnosed with something like shingles the week of the race, I mean, that's pretty intense, because now, and we've talked about race week issues, and that's pretty neat that you still went to the start line and did it.
Yeah. So, I felt good on the Saturday morning. It was interesting. I normally don't sleep well. We've talked about that. I slept actually well the night before. My wife didn't sleep well because she was worried about me racing.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And it was funny because when I got up, I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. But I really wasn't myself for sure for that day. But anyways, that was my next debacle.
We checked our insurance policies before the race, so we were all up to date. So that was all good. All right. So then your sock gate. All right. So now I'll tell my sock gate. So this is interesting. So what number were you?
202.
202. All right. I was 408. I don't know if it's the same person, but I get into T1 and I go down and I put on my left, I take my chip off, put it in my mouth this time. I put my sock on, make sure my feet are all dry, put my sock on, put my shoe on, put my chip back on. Then I go for my other one, and the other sock's gone.
What?
It's not there at all. And so I started looking around. I'm like, must have just gotten kicked off. So I started looking around my bike. I looked, Laura's racked right next to me. I looked next to hers, nothing. My bag's right up against the fence as well.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is.
So I go and I open up my bag. I'm like, I look, I fumble through it a little bit. I'm looking for it. And I'm like, it's not here. I have no idea where that sock is. And so now I'm like, I've got one sock on, I got nothing on the other one. I'm like, well, what do I do? Do I go with one sock?
Yeah.
So I decided.
So did you go with one sock?
No, I decided to be a little bit more symmetrical. So I took the sock back, took the shoe back off, took the timing chip back off, made sure to hold on to it, because I lost my timing chip. I never put it back on when I changed socks in St. George. And so then took the sock back off, and I know one of our listeners will be very happy that I went barefoot for the entire race. So
exactly.
Rick has always been giving me a hard time with wearing socks. So
I should have just went barefoot, I think. But so I have to ask you, because this is the first time hearing of this. You get to transition one, you take your chip off, and then you put your sock on. Why don't you just pull your sock over your chip and be more aerodynamic?
Well, the way that my sock is on, I don't like the chip under the sock.
Oh,
that's
okay.
what.
See, I pull my sock up over my timing chip. I feel it's more aerodynamic on the bike.
It probably is, but for me, it's a comfort level as well.
Yep.
That I used to do that, but then it would just feel so tight around my ankle that it was uncomfortable biking, and so then I just started putting the chip on the outside. So
okay.
No.
All right.
So
sock gate. This is going to be Oceanside sock gate.
Yeah. So someone has your sock.
No, I had both my socks.
So you do have.
They were in my backpack. I just didn't set them out.
All right. So I have my other sock.
It's so funny because I have like all these lists.
Yeah.
And I know you do too.
Yeah.
The list I don't have is morning setting up the transition area.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've ever made a mistake like that. Or because I literally have everything in my bag. I just take everything out one at a time. But the socks were at the bottom. And so
I don't know what happened to it, because I went through our stuff. I went through my stuff. I went through Laura's stuff after the race.
Yeah, I was gonna say, after the race, was there just a random sock sitting around?
Well, it never turned up. So, and I looked for it as I came through in T2 as well. And so I don't know where that sock is. It must have fallen out of my bag somewhere along the way. But
interesting. Okay, so is it me or you?
That was mine. So yours.
So the truth of the matter is, the only other thing that was kind of off for me is, and this is very minor, is I was running. So I made it all the way to the run. And within a mile, I noticed my shoe, the lace, they weren't tight enough. And then the tongue had flipped.
Oh, yeah.
So it's actually pretty interesting. So if you know the course, the first little up ramp,
Yeah.
I got to that and there's a bench there. So I just put my foot up on the bench.
Yeah.
Well, the guy that's taking the pictures is right there.
Oh.
So I have all these pictures, race pictures of me fixing my shoe.
Nice. That's great.
So that was my next thing. But honestly, the bike was very smooth for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have the best power I've ever had by any stretch of the imagination, but
Yeah.
it was good. There was no, nobody cut me off. I had a nice conversation with somebody as we climbed up the big climb.
Yep.
It was honestly it's just a nice bike course. I enjoy that bike course a lot.
Well, I think that's smart to be able to stop and fix your shoe.
Yep.
Because too many times people will run through something like that, and then all of a sudden you end up with, more of a foot injury.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking, who was it? Eliud Kipchoge that ran where his insoles were coming out of his shoes at some point. So I can't believe that's pretty amazing.
Well,
so.
if you think about it, if you change your gait
Mhm.
for 13 miles,
Yeah.
running at a hard pace, you could get a hamstring
That's
strain,
it.
you could hurt your back, you
Yeah.
could, there's all these things that could potentially happen because you're trying to save, well, shoot, I shouldn't have stopped at that 10 seconds.
There you go. There's another 10 seconds right there.
There's another 10
We're
seconds.
going to be
right?
winning the race soon.
I
if we
know,
add
if
this
I
all
keep
up.
adding this up. But what if?
Yeah. No,
Or
that's-
how about you? How was the bike for you?
So bike was good. I feel very comfortable. And like you said, the wind was not an issue. It was very predictable. So that was good. There was one sharp turn though that I wasn't expecting.
Whereabouts?
And, I want to say, was it coming through the tunnel? Where is a
Oh yeah,
sharp
you
right?
take the right after the tunnel.
Yeah, and
And-
there was a guy up in front of me who had a little too much speed he carried, and he did not make the turn. And-
The ambulance was parked there, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. So when I went by, there was an ambulance parked there, and I said to them, I was like, "You guys are in the right spot."
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I said that to them, and they kind of giggled at me.
Yeah.
And so they were in the right spot.
So that was but bike course went well. Although coming up that hill that you're mentioning, I see someone walking their bike up.
Oh
And it didn't look too good. And so I pulled up alongside and I said, hey, you okay? And it turned out one of our athletes, and I'll let him tell the story at some point. But he quickly told me that he got knocked off his bike in an interaction with another cyclist. I don't know the whole story yet. But
I talked to him last night.
Oh, did you?
So he's actually a lifeguard at our pool.
Oh, nice.
And so he told me the story.
Yeah. Okay.
And he said that he literally got knocked off his bike. Someone clipped him.
Oh.
And they both crashed.
Yeah.
He was pretty banged up.
He was.
He had it's basically
His
road
hands.
rash,
Oh,
hands,
Yeah.
and his derailleur got
Mhm.
broken to the point where he couldn't shift it.
Yeah.
And so he was going up the hills. He'd have to get off his bike and
Yeah.
walk his bike up the hills, but he could ride it down.
He was not walking very good.
No,
though.
he was in rough shape. Now, fortunately, unfortunately, he's okay.
Mhm.
And SAG picked him up.
Yeah.
And they drove him back. He said it was a long time getting back because they were like stopping along the way, fixing people's
Yeah.
flats
Yeah.
and different things. But really, honestly, it really actually broke my heart, to be
Mhm.
honest with you, because he's a young guy and he's getting into the sport. This is his second race.
Mhm.
And honestly, when we talked last night, my heart was broken.
Yeah.
Especially when it was somebody else that knocked you.
Mhm.
And he said he didn't even see it coming. The guy clipped him from behind.
Mm.
And I was like, well, was the guy at least apologetic? He's like, no, the guy just got about on his bike and rode off.
Oh.
And I was
geez.
like, oh man, come on. But,
Well, when I came across him, he was all bloodied. His hands were cut up really bad. And there was blood on his frame because he told me about his derailleur. And I said, well, let me get behind you and see what's going on. So he's walking. He wanted to stop. I said, don't stop. You got to keep moving. Because I didn't want him to seize up at that point. And so got behind, I couldn't tell what was going on. But at that point, I wanted to make sure he was okay. And I think this is something I think we need to check on each other as we go along. Fortunately, I was not in full race mode, but it's still, just check on, it's good to check on each other as we're out there. But there was no sag around. So now what I do, I said, okay, well, let me try to call ahead and get someone to come back and get you. So we're going up. And if you remember, that's 2 lanes going uphill, 1 lane coming downhill. I move all the way over to the left lane. Cars are coming down. I'm trying to stop a car while I'm biking.
Oh, no.
And they're waving back to me.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, good job.
And I'm like, no, stop. And so, it was hard to stop. I wasn't able to stop anyone. So I rode up, up the hill, and eventually a ref came along on a motorcycle, and I was able to flag that referee down. And I told them, go back, check on him, get someone to help him out. And they did, because later on I was biking, and that same ref came up behind me, and I said, hey, did you get the cyclist? They said, yeah, we got him, and he got picked up by swag. I said, okay, perfect. And then right after that, they flagged someone behind me for drafting.
Off of you?
Behind me. Yeah. It was behind me, right? Drafting off me. And so it was just sort of funny that the ref came along and
I didn't see a referee the entire
I
bike
saw
ride.
Many. I probably saw 3 different.
It's funny how like that happens
Yeah.
a lot of races where I'll see like 3 or 4, and then I'll talk to someone that they didn't see any. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking at Kelly's comment here. Yes, it sounds like the same guy. And yeah, he was crushed when I saw him. And but hopefully he'll recover and sign up for the next race and get going. But super nice kid. And
Well, even when I talked to him yesterday, he's like, "It's all good. Like
Good.
I'm okay." Like
Yeah.
he was. I think I was more crushed than
Yeah.
he was yesterday,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So yeah, and that's something. Now, what's interesting is I heard another athlete. They were going up that hill, and someone had flatted, and that athlete was trying to stop someone else to get their toolkit. And I'm like, that is not.
I would never stop somebody.
No.
I would, if someone stopped and offered me, I would absolutely say yes.
Yeah.
But no, I would never expect somebody to stop for my mechanic.
No, that's right. And
Now,
so
if I crash and I'm bloodied on the side of the road,
time to stop.
time for
Yeah.
somebody to stop and
Yeah.
make sure I'm okay.
Yeah. But yeah, mechanicals, we need to know how to change our own tires. We need to have our right tools. And I'm the same way. If I flatted out or something happened and I don't have the right tool, that's
my
my
fault.
deal.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah,
I agree.
interesting. Okay, so let's see. Where were we?
I think we're still on your bike ride because
Okay, that
I
was-
had a pretty uneventful bike ride.
All right. So you did your run. What else did you have?
Honestly, I had a good run.
Yeah.
You know, I considering the shingles and that I was not on my full A game,
Mm.
had a good run. Yeah, I really, I felt that I had no other issues.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good day.
Yeah.
And but it you do a lot of planning ahead of time.
Yeah.
And not only logistic, but just thinking through the race. And well, no, I'll call one out for you. Was your the crowds through the aid station?
Oh yes, we did talk about that. Yeah. So this is more of a tactical issue. Is in a 2-loop run or 3-loop run, the aid stations get more crowded, and many people have the idea that they're going to walk the aid stations, and it's a good idea. Like especially if you're going to be out there a long time. So when I'm on my second lap, there was a couple times where people were walking the aid stations, and 2 times it was actually the last 2 aid stations. I wasn't stopping at the last one, but the second last one, I wanted to grab a water, and I went to grab the first water. A person was running literally right in front of me, and they dead stop.
Yeah.
And I had to do spin move.
Yeah.
Spin move. I actually could probably hit them a little bit, to be honest with you. But I'm not a jerk. I'm just like, okay, hey, sorry. I think I even apologized to them. But this is a little bit of a learning lesson for me. Is like on a 2-loop bike or run course, I got to try and get a water later, rather than the first one.
Yeah.
Because normally my game plan is to grab the first water, drink it, then grab the last water, put it on my head.
Okay.
And so I just, that was just a little thing. But
it was a well-attended race because
Oh,
it did get a little crowded out there on a
was it
couple of those
3,000?
stretches. I don't
20
know. Yeah.
Well, a person that I know was in the number was 2,800 something. So I think it was probably pretty close to 3,000. And I mean, you could tell it was a well-attended race in that transition area. Man, that
Yeah.
thing was huge.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was. And, the one nice thing about, and both of us have talked about this ahead of this, is being able to see so many people.
Yeah.
Especially on the way the run course is designed. I mean, it's almost hard to miss someone. There's only one section where you're not really running one way or the other. And it really is neat to know so many other people doing the race like that. And it's a nice distraction to, hey, how's it going? And, high-fiving or, fist bumping people. And it's really neat to see that.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, and your next one.
All right. Actually, I'm looking at my notes here because I knew I would forget some of these. So I wrote these down after the race. How many lost water bottles and tools and CO2? What did you see out there on the bike course?
I saw a lot of water bottles at one. There was a few bumps along the way.
Mhm.
That's a notoriously bumpy. There's some bumpy sections. There's some great smooth sections, but there's definitely some bumps.
Mhm.
I probably only saw maybe 5, 6 water bottles.
Okay.
Some
You were
bunch-
ahead of me then.
A bunch of
Yeah,
nutrition,
yeah,
like
yeah.
a bunch of gels and
Mhm.
things that had fallen out. Yeah, I was probably a little bit ahead. You started pretty late.
I did.
for
I
you.
started, I ended up somewhere around the 35-40 group is where I think I
Well, I
was.
started right at the 35, front of the
Okay,
35s.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was definitely some nutrition lost along the
Mhm.
way. It's an interesting thing. I think we've all lost nutrition
Yeah.
along the way. It's unfortunate, but that's the nice thing about having aid stations. Like,
Yeah.
you can make up for it.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
No, that's good. Yeah. So I saw CO2 cartridges. I saw the adapter, and it was in chunks too. It was right where some of these bumps were, and you just see all this debris. And so, but that's something just to be prepared. One, make sure that your gear and your water bottles are secure enough that they don't come flying out. And then two, just be able, you got to be able to adapt. Or when would you stop and turn around? And-
Oh, if
and
I
get
lost something off my
Yeah.
bike?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, I did stop and turn around at a race last year. I
Mhm.
lost my heat monitor,
Mm.
but it's like a $250
Yeah, right,
thing.
right.
So that was more for the cost, but I don't think I would not in that race, but if it was a hot race and there
Yeah.
was no more aid stations,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe I'd stop for if I
Yeah.
dropped a water bottle,
Mm-hmm.
because it's more about the thermal.
Mm-hmm.
If let's say we just went past an aid station and I had nothing and
Yeah.
I dropped them, I think I'd go back.
Mm.
But in that race, I don't think I would have. There was nothing on me that I couldn't have got the next aid station.
Mm-hmm. No,
with,
I like
with
that.
3 aid stations on the bike and cold temperatures,
Yeah.
I think I'd have been okay.
Yeah, I would really only for an iron distance event. And like you said, especially on hot race,
Yeah.
making sure that you still have the right stuff that you've been planning for.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times you just got to make it to the next aid station and go. And this race was a perfect race for that because the temperatures were just perfect racing temperatures. It was really very comfortable.
Let's actually just talk about that really quickly. And we talked about this a long time ago when we talked about hydration and
Mhm.
nutrition. So when we talked about hydration, and we did it in the fall, kind of was the hotter part of the race season. So for me on this race course, I knew it was going to be relatively cool, and I knew I'd only need maximum two bottles. But then the amount of calories I'm getting in those bottles is different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I purposely plan more calories
Mhm.
of food or gels on the bike,
Mhm.
because I knew I wasn't going to drink 3. Normally in a 70.3, I'd drink 3 bottles of nutrition.
Mm.
But this time I knew I was only going to get 2. I only did 1.5, but I kind of thought maybe I'd only do 1.5. So I put more gel blocks
Right.
on my bike, and I ate them all.
Yeah.
But I think that needs to go into the planning. It can't just be like, okay, I'm doing a 70.3. I'm going to have 3 water bottles
Yeah.
full of nutrition, and I'm going to have this 2 gels.
Yep.
It has to be variable based off of the conditions.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And I think that's why I'm hearing a lot of people separating out their fluid
Yep.
and their calories, or at least in concept, but because they are different. And so, yeah.
And you got to plan for that, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to have this amount of bottles.
Mhm.
I mean, we're getting ready for the next race in 4 weeks, the full Ironman. I have full thought process. It's going to be 100 degrees.
Mhm.
So I'm going to be taking in a lot more fluid.
Yeah.
but I'm going to be taking fluid that has nutrition in it.
Mhm.
So I'll probably need to carry less solid nutrition
Right,
than I
right.
normally would for a cold race.
Mhm.
And so this is, it's not, I don't think I separate it, but I still think of like the number
Account
of
for it.
calories I
Yeah,
count
right. You
for it.
account for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, see, that's interesting because I did not bring my nutrition. I ended up just saying, okay, I'm just going to pick up some gels along the way. So I picked up Morton gels, and I just took in the calories that way versus
Yeah.
in my bottles. So
And let me ask you a question, because I know you've had gastrointestinal issues. Any this
I had
time?
none. I had none
Okay.
at all.
So, okay, and do you normally use Morton gel,
I've done Morton before.
but
But
on your
I-
training days?
I did do Morton in training
Okay.
leading up, and then I did Morton for Ironman Maryland. But I think I took in way too many calories. The interesting thing about Morton is it's much more caloric dense, and so you can get a lot more calories in. And I think I overdid it on Morton at that point. So
I took in 5 Mortons on the run
okay.
in an hour and a half,
Oh wow, yeah,
and I don't regret one of them.
yeah.
I I timed them.
Yeah.
I had good energy.
Mm-hmm.
When I took in the last one, I think I had 2 miles to go,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like, okay, I'm just starting to come down a little bit. I took my last one then.
Oh nice.
I didn't plan on 5. I planned on 4,
Mm-hmm.
but I grabbed one at that last aid station. So I felt like I just needed a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so once again, it wasn't my plan,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes you got to just go with your gut.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't train with Morton because I don't want to pay $4 a gel.
Yeah.
But I survived. I had no gastrointestinal issues. And once again, I'll go with, and I know people, coaches and people say, oh, you got to train with what you,
Mm-hmm.
I think you can train your gut to be variable,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of like we roll with different shoes. We talked about, changing out shoes to
Mhm.
train, and maybe we need to think about variability in our race nutrition
Mhm.
as well, because you can't always control. Like you could have had all the food you wanted,
Well-
and then you don't bring it or you lose it,
Yeah.
and then what are you going to do? You got to take what's on the course.
Well, the phrase I've heard is being metabolically flexible. All right, and that's a nice catchway to
Yeah.
say exactly what you just said. But for me, I felt like I could eat anything on this race because I was bringing my intensity down. And once you bring the intensity down, like right now, we can eat anything and we're not going to have GI
Yeah.
issues. It's when you're at that red line that you've got to be really, really careful with what you take in.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that you bring a good point too, because of being cooler, you're not working as hard.
That's right. right.
My average heart rate on the bike was 145.
Yeah.
Right. So at 145, I can take in a lot different food than if I'm at 160.
That's true. That's right.
And then I was running at 160,
Mm-hmm.
which is more like my threshold, but I definitely wasn't threshold on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that does play a role. But
Yeah.
if it was 100 degrees, my heart rate at the
Yeah.
same power output may have been 155,
That's right.
160. And so I think that does play a role.
No, totally. And I think that for me, that really allowed me to have a really enjoyable race experience because I didn't have any GI issues. The temperatures were lower. My intensity was a nice intensity to be able to sustain. And so then I could take in, I took in the Morton gels, which I don't train with. I had a Rice Krispie treat.
Yes.
I had some gummies and some gum. So it was good. I was well fueled throughout the event, and I was actually able to take in some soda for the first time, some Coke. On the second, I decided to try that for the second.
And how'd that
loop.
go?
It went good. I didn't have any issues, which was great because I just wanted to try to get in that mindset. Okay, on St. George, I want to be able to take in some Coke because that's again very caloric dense. You can get some good calories in that way and some fluid. So
yeah, no, I think that's a good thing. And I like the term metabolic flexibility.
Mhm.
Flexibility, and we tend to think of that as being able to take in fats and carbohydrates, but I think it's different sources of carbohydrates: fructose, sucrose, maltodextrin.
Mhm.
You should be able, I think, train your body to take in all sorts of different things,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's great.
Yeah. So let's see. The other note I wrote down was the wide variety of athletes doing this race.
Oh, wasn't it great?
It was really inspiring. I mean, it was every shape and size and age of athlete. It was really pretty amazing. And I thought it really stood out to me that there was such a variety of people.
It's such a great sport when you can have people, the pros are finishing at 3:45 and the last finishers are 8:30 and they all did the same course. And honestly, the people that are doing 8:30, they had a long day out there and they worked harder.
Yep.
If you really think about it, it was spectacular. And for me, one of the big highlights was racing with some of the top professionals in the world. I was super fortunate that I actually got to see the end of the pro field going the exact opposite way.
Yeah.
Right. So I saw, all of the top four, but what sticks in my mind is at that point, Alistair Brownlee was ahead of Lionel Sanders. And he looked better than Lionel Sanders. So when people tell me at the finish, hey, by the way, he finished fourth, Alistair finished fourth, and Lionel finished second. I'm like, what? They only when I saw them, they had less than a K to go.
Yeah.
So that to me is super cool. And then where I was on the course, the pro women were on their second loop when I was on their first, on my first, and they were passing me. Like the first Taylor Knibb passed me.
Yeah.
I remember Holly Lawrence passing me. And when Holly Lawrence passed me, I'm like, she's not running too much faster than I am. I'm gonna try and hang.
Yep.
Well, I hung with her for about 500 meters.
She's a good runner.
She's a good runner. And she slowly inched away from me. But it's kind of cool because when I look at my splits, that was actually my fastest half
great.
K of the race. But that's pretty cool when you can like see some of that. I've listened to a lot of her interviews. She inspires me a little bit because she was at a 70.3 world championship. The one she won, I was at that one. And so anyways, it's super cool to be able to be on the course at the same time with those people.
It is, and everyone's doing the same course, and it's even inspiring. Like, and this sounds terrible, but we're walking back, and we're seeing people just coming out of transition 2 to start the run, and you want to let them know that what they're doing is amazing, and it is amazing, and it's you tell them that you're out there with them, and they've got still quite a ways to go, but it's still inspiring to see them take this challenge on.
I love that, and that's honestly one of my favorite parts about triathlon is you have that diversity and variety, and everyone's doing their thing, and I love that. Right. Anything else?
Well, yeah. So then we always talk about not making big decisions afterwards.
Yes, don't sign up for a race like right afterwards. Give it a couple days.
But I got that email. Oh, we're losing light here, but yeah, I got that email. Hey, this is the last day for the pre-race. What were they called? Pre-race discount or whatever.
I didn't think it was a discount though. How much did you pay?
Was it $3.99?
Yeah, I think that's just the price.
It is.
So,
and it probably would have only saved like $10 anyhow.
So I'm still licking my wounds, and John texts me on Sunday night, hey, did you sign up for Oceanside next year yet? Okay. Yeah. So all it took was actually you were the 4th person I think that it texted me within the hour.
Yeah.
And so that email comes out, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. And that just goes to show that what we think of that race, though, right? Because there's been a lot of races I've done. I'm like, I don't want to do that one again. Or if everything went right, I would do that again. The Oceanside race for us, because we can drive down. It's good weather. It's we can train up into that race in Las Vegas. I think it's a spectacular race.
And great competition. It's just exciting. And so and it's nice. It's Oceanside, so it's just nice to get out there and be at the ocean. And
honestly, it's one of my favorite places. I wish 15 years ago I'd have bought a little place out there. Now I can't afford it.
No,
not that I couldn't have afforded it back then, anyways. But it is a spectacular location.
No good camping spots for the trailer, but that's okay. Other than that, it's a good place. So
we had an empty lot beside the house we rented. You could have easily parked your your trailer in that empty lot.
Well, and that's what I told you. I was going to email the race director and say, hey, I'll volunteer for you if you let me park my trailer in your parking lot.
Awesome.
Well, it's neat to kick that race off. We talked about this sort of the first big race, and it's great to do it with a lot of people that we knew, and Yeah, that's motivating. Helps get the year off to a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that was good. It's getting dark. We're losing light, so
Yeah.
let's wrap it up for this week. Um, thanks everybody for listening. So we're a little late this week. I'm sure we messed up some people's dinner plans,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
And we're gonna have hopefully a pro guest on our next one, or one of our next ones. So that'll be fun.
Yep, awesome. All right, well, thanks, John.
All right.